there, brilliant people. So today I want to talk about something that's really quite important for a lot of us, because unfortunately a lot of us, myself included actually, were brought up in pretty uncomfortable or dysfunctional situations. And one of the long-term consequences of that is that we come out of that carrying a lot of shame. And that shame, because it means that we have this voice in our head that just keeps giving us a hard time. It keeps giving us a hard time even when we're just being who we really are. Because actually that's where it came from, of course. The shame comes from the fact that when we were little, we were shamed for being who we really are. And obviously, I suppose currently with all the discussions, it's probably not the right word, but it's the word I'm using, about identity and gender and all, and all the ways that we can express ourselves. Shame is a thing that a lot of people end up having to deal with long term. And of course, if we lived if our civilization was, from my point of view, a little bit saner, everybody would be supported to live in their integrity and to be able to express that, in an appropriate way. But the problem is that a lot of the times we are brought up and we are shamed for just being who we really are. And the problem with that is that can then stay with us, and it can be very debilitating because it means that we can really live with this voice in our head that just won't shut up, and that is always giving us a hard time about whatever we're doing. So healing that is really important. And it's something that I've helped people do for years. And so generally it comes down to a 3-step process, I've found. So the first step is to heal what I call inappropriate shame. So inappropriate shame is the shame that was put on us. It's the shame that we carry because we were shamed. And so that's what we need to release. We need to release those times when we took on other people's invalidation of ourselves, particularly those times that other people's invalidation of who we were caused us to kind of sell out on ourselves a bit or broke our relationship with who we really are. Because that in many ways is the real cost of being shamed, is that if we end up feeling like we've betrayed ourselves or our true self in some way, that's a very heavy burden to carry, and we need to learn to forgive ourselves for doing that. I'm not saying you have to forgive the person who shamed you, but we need to forgive ourselves, because otherwise we're not going to get past this. If you need help with that, please either get in touch with me or a fractologist or an appropriate therapist to help you work through that. But that's the first step, letting go of that negative, inappropriate shame. So the second step might seem a bit odd, but the second step is to then rehabilitate appropriate shame. Because the problem is that if in trying to heal our shame, we try to let go of all shame, that doesn't work either, because then we end up in a different kind of internal conflict. Because all of those things, it's like anger can be really toxic, but healthy anger or appropriate anger, you need that anger because your anger is what maintains your boundaries. Like all of these feelings, we have them, they're part of our internal toolbox. The problem is that these our upbringing can get things pretzeled up inside, so that we end up not using them in an appropriate or healthy way. And that is what it happens with shame. So the feeling of shame, that squirrely feeling that you get inside when you're doing something that you really think, when you really know you shouldn't be doing it. Well, so healthy or appropriate shame is actually your conscience just talking to you. It's that part of you that is keeping an eye on your integrity and is actually saying to you, "Oi, Catherine, you sure you want to do that? Because that may not be in your integrity." That's an entirely appropriate thing, and you want that. You want that voice, because that voice helps you live in your integrity by alerting you to moments when you might be about to step out of it. The problem is that when that feeling has, as I said, it's been tangled up or pretzeled up inside, so that instead of you getting that feeling when you're about to let go of your integrity, you get that feeling when you're not being what someone else wants you to be. Because then you get yourself into this double bind where you're damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing. Because, if you step out of your integrity to be what the other person wants you to be, well, then you might feel, appropriate shame because you're not being, true to yourself anymore. But then if you try to be true to yourself, then you feel that inappropriate shame because now you're not being who the other person wants you to be. But that's why you need to let go of the inappropriate shame. But you want to own your own shame. Not that you want to feel it, but you want to be able to acknowledge it when it's there so that you can get to live in your integrity more, because that will take you to the third step. So you may have heard that, the opposite to fear is actually not courage. The opposite to fear is actually love, because those two are mutually expansive states. It's something that is really written about in something called A Course in Miracles. It's an old book now. You may have read it or not. But in the same way, the opposite to shame is actually joy. When we are just living in our integrity, when we are just expressing who we truly are without inhibition, that's, we feel joy. I mean, for me, our joy is where our love and our truth meet. It's one of the reasons why, watching little kids play is really fun, because they're just living in joy, and that lasts for as long as they get shamed for things. Anyway, so the whole cycle, it's about letting go of inappropriate shame, acknowledging appropriate shame so that we can live in our integrity more, so that we can actually get back to living in joy. Because when we've really only truly healed that shame, when we can live in joy, which is, for me, is one of the strongest signs of someone is actually truly healthy, is when they can live in joy. So that is what I wish for you, that you realize joy in your life, and remember that you're brilliant.